I love this photograph, this meme of a kitty cat talking to a statue of a lion. There are two primary paths according to Lao Tzu, the path of Yang and the path of Yin. George Lucas might describe it as the path of the Sith and the path of the Jedi, true Jedi. And the path of the Sith is very, very rigid. Now, being rigid may accomplish many things, but not peace. There's no such thing as being rigidly happy-go-lucky. I know, I've tried. It doesn't work. And so we have to bring flexibility into the path of meditation if it's going to be truly effective. When we read the Satipatthana Sutta, and Satipatthana literally means four bases of mindfulness. That's why we've got these four Norwegian cats over here. Anyway, when we read the four bases of mindfulness, we talk about applying mindfulness to our body, whether our body is lying, sitting, standing, or walking. So there are some very, very rigid, cranky people who will say you have to sit on a zafu with your legs in a full lotus posture or it's not meditation. And I'm sure those people are cranky about many, many things, not just meditation. But the Buddha never specified it had to be the lotus posture. When we read the Anapanasati Sutta or the Satipatthana Sutta or the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the instructions are remarkably vague. Sit on some piled leaves or a cushion with your legs crossed and bring your awareness in front of you. That is really concise instruction and vague. That the 2/3 of those meditation manuals also mention meditating in more than one posture. Let's take a deeper look at that. Sitting is a great place to start. And contrary to a lot of the yoga teachers or a lot of the Zen teachers, not all, but many, I'm not a big fan of the full lotus. I prefer the quarter lotus position. Over numerous decades, I have been experimenting with every sitting posture. And I have limitations. Many of you have limitations as well. So here's the trick to sitting in a quarter lotus posture. Number one, I like using a zafu, which is a firm cushion, usually filled with buckwheat. But if you can't find one, then just sit on the ground. Personally, if I'm going to sit on the ground, I'll sit upon a folded yoga blanket. They're cheap. They're like 15 or 20 bucks. They are really durable. You can wash one every week and it'll still have structural integrity for the better part of a decade. They're really built well. Anyway, you don't force the knees to do anything. The knees are just hinge joints. You want to really open up, not from the knees, but from the hip joints, because the hip joints are ball joints, which means they're quasi-omnidirectional. So if the first time you try to sit in the quarter lotus posture and it isn't picture perfect, that's fine. Be impeccable with your posture, relax as much as possible. Practice this at least 5 minutes once every 12 hours or so. And within a week or so, your body will rediscover its flexibility. You see, we're all born flexible. We're all able to sit in the cobbler's pose. We're all able to do a full squat. We're all very flexible at birth. As years go on, our bodies sometimes forget how to be flexible. But with patience, time, and gravity, we can rekindle the sitting posture. While we're on the subject of sitting, I recommend having an impeccable posture, and here's the key to do that. You want to tuck your chin a little bit and pretend that there is a soft rope around your head. The knot is tied in the back, It runs across a pulley suspended from the ceiling. And as you pull it down, your head is pulled up. So imagine your head pulling up is much easier than pushing your head up. Don't know why, just seems to work that way. So this is a really useful posture. This is your go-to move, but it's not the only posture in town. Sometimes we crave invigoration. And so a lot of us can find that practicing the exact same meditation that we're going to play with in just a few minutes, but this practicing the same mental aspect of meditation, noticing as we breathe in, relaxing as we breathe out, can be practiced while we're in a horse stance. And not everyone feels comfortable with a deep horse stance the first day. That's fine. But we can find a stance that is invigorating, because sometimes our body craves that. Personally, I'm neurodivergent. I have both autism and ADHD. And as someone with ADHD, us folks with ADHD just can't hold on to dopamine. Our bodies can't hold on to dopamine. And so we're always searching for a new dopamine source. And exercise is a great source of dopamine. This is a fun meditation. And if you do it and you live with cats, they will really enjoy judging you. Walking meditation is great. Now, sadly, for some strange reason, many people are taught to practice walking concentration, but that's not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha did not teach concentration. He taught mindfulness. What's the difference between concentration and mindfulness? Glad you asked. Concentration is active and it's rigid. It says, I'm going to focus on one thing and everything can fuck off. Meditation is the opposite. It's simply practicing perception. Vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random. So as we are walking around our block or walking through our neighborhood, as briskly as you comfortably can, walk. This is great when you feel deeply agitated. This is great if you're having a PTSD episode. If you are having a PTSD episode, there can be moments of disorientation where revivification of the past trumps our experience in the present moment. So to prevent you from walking into traffic, I recommend, if you're going to do walking meditation in that state, to limit yourself to staying on the sidewalk and just walking around your block. And hopefully you have some good rapport skills. And if your neighbor wants to know what's going on, just say, I'm having a PTSD episode, and so I'm doing walking meditation. I know it's weird, but it helps me to work through it. And hopefully your neighbor will be cool to you. So in this beautiful photograph, the individual is walking barefoot in an urban setting. Walking barefoot can be treacherous. Personally, I like wearing barefoot shoes. So instead of walking heel toe, I walk toe heel. But walking meditation is something I try to practice every day, health permitting. It's wonderful. It's a real tonic. This brings us to lying meditation. And of course, there's a cat, just with a crush on the couch. And that reminds me of a wonderful meme I once saw. I wish I would have posted it. And it's a beautiful dog. And it says, millennia ago, we were cagey and wild. But then we learned you have sofas. If you lie on your back to meditate, you are probably going to fall asleep. There's nothing wrong with falling asleep. You need to sleep. So if you meditate with the intention of sleep being a good thing, like for instance, twice a day, I sleep. I take a nap. I take what I call a disco nap, about 4 o'clock. and I try to get to bed at 10 or 11 at night. And when I lay down and I'm waiting for sleep to come, I do different meditations. So meditating is perfectly appropriate. It's said the Buddha alternated between all four of those meditations. The Buddha was raised in the warrior caste, and so for the majority of his life, he trained his body to be relatively strong. So it makes sense that as a monk, he was no stranger to his own body. And so he practically led by example. And just as he taught in the Satipatthana Sutta, he could meditate laying, sitting, standing, and walking. If you've ever had to stand in line at an amusement park or at the bank or at the grocery store, that's a great time to meditate. I once spoke to a what's it called? A neurologist at Kaiser Permanente. And his office was literally across the street from the Scientology building. And this guy was convinced that Scientology was the way, and I needed to forsake my monk's robes and be just like him. And his big sales point was that last time he was at Costco and standing in the line and he was upset, he just stood still, glared at the woman in front of him, and twitched a hand. And he said, "Wasn't that cool? Isn't that great?" And the answer is, no, that's not peaceful. That's not loving. That's menacing and scary. Now, clearly that guy is not a representative of all the members of Scientology. No one member of any group is representative of all the members of any group as a rule. That's just his deal. That was just his way of relating to me. But these four postures are ways of working with our body. It's so much more useful to listen to our body's needs and respond to them. If we practice austerity, that's not going to be as beneficial as we think it might. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Together as a team, let us chant the Sunday morning excerpt. Let's try that again. Let us chant the Sunday evening excerpt of the first Dzogchen manual. Its title is The Vast Expanse of Vajrasattva. It was composed by the founder of Dzogchen, Gaurab Dorje. It was translated into English by Yeshe Donton, and it's been adapted as well as amplified by yours truly. If at any point you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, don't be shy. Simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. If you're using a desktop or a laptop, that window could be on the right. And if you're using a smartphone, that window could be down below. Together, let's chant. Non-grasping is already the perfect offering beyond any need for practice. The consummation of all practices which is already present. So, this essential meditation of coordinating our inhalation and our exhalation with noticing and releasing is the key. It is the perfect offering. We don't need to bow. We don't need to set out flowers before a statue. To simply practice this technique is the culmination of all spiritual practices. Non-conceptual wisdom, take two. Non-conceptual wisdom eliminates every obstruction. Contemplative equanimity is the perfect mantra. How many times has it felt like something was standing between you and peace, or you in happiness, or you in love, or you in health, or you in success, or you in a fulfilling relationship? Often this feeling of obstruction can drive us towards ritualism or superstition or mantra, and we're being taught by the founder of this path that that's not necessary. That noticing and releasing, mindfulness and meditation really are a panacea. If you've just joined me, welcome aboard. When you have a specific question about this stuff, simply type it in great detail in the chat window. Let's continue. To honor spiritual teachers, practice generosity, and perform all manner of merit-making activities becomes a form of ignorance when performed in the absence of equality and non-attachment. So doing all this pious stuff, doing all this ritual, it can actually be like shooting ourselves in the foot if we do it from a place of rigidity and duality and the like. The wisdom conveyed by this teaching gets obscured by active striving. When envisioned by conceptual grasping, the true condition cannot be realized. And so the 55 chapters of this text, or the 55 verses of this text, conclude on a heavy note. In essence, Gaurab Dorje is reminding us not to be controlling, not to be rigid. Instead, to be flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Be playful in the practice, and you will master it quickly. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything is crap, including meditation teachers. And most meditation teachers teach from a place of either being controlling or being fearful and superstitious. They really do much more harm than good. And if you have a teacher who is cryptic, that's even worse. A good teacher is lucid, as plain as the nose on your face. So let's see, let's turn our attention to our practice text for this evening. But first, if you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as Rey on Ahch-To under the guidance of Luke Skywalker, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. And now I want to click the right button, and this should be it. Let us chant the recitations of empathetic bodhicitta and enthusiastic refuge. We'll start with the longer version. We're using a triplet chant. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, by relying on thee, Buddha's example, instructions, and students. So these three things are so useful. They've earned the metaphoric nickname of the three wish-fulfilling jewels, or simply the three jewels. Whoops, gotta sneeze. Oh my goodness. Together. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. Mindfulness and meditation are known by many names, but their practice doesn't have to be difficult. To practice mindfulness, we practice mindfulness during our inhalation because that is when we effortlessly access our sympathetic nervous system, ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord. It is evolved not for active concentration, but to merely notice, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Therefore, during our inhalation, it's perfectly appropriate to silently and mentally recite, notice this, or simply this. We could perceive all manner of things during our mindfulness. We could perceive sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. We could perceive emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, imaginings, and confabulations. What do we do with these things that we notice? We meditate, but how do we do that? During each exhalation, whether we know it or not, we access the parasympathetic portion and the parasympathetic nervous system ensconced within both the lumbar and cervical regions of our spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to both physically relax as well as mentally release. Therefore, during our exhalation, it's perfectly appropriate to silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing, or its one-syllable synonym, ease. Let's meditate. Ghastly, is it not? This line drawing of a naked guy sitting in meditation, it represents the first teacher of Dzogchen, Gaurab Dorje, who in Odinaya, or North India, was known as Prahe Vajra. You can see film on or video on YouTube of the Dalai Lama giving lectures in America. And the Americans are just so excited that they just get up in the middle of the lecture and start bowing in the direction of the Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama often says that bowing's nice, but he would prefer it if someone simply showed their respect for the teachings by applying the teachings rather than just being a silly head and bowing all the time. I tend to check for questions once every 7 to 9 minutes. So if you type a question and press send, and then it feels like a short eternity until I respond, there is no need to take that personally. Let us seal this evening's practice with a bit of the old chanting, beginning with kind ethics. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and commerce flow spontaneous and uncontrived. Let us conclude with the 4 immeasurables. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could type something in the chat window. You could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could share it with a friend. You could even help support this channel on Patreon. In approximately 11 1/4 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early morning meditation class and practice. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. If you are as geeky as me, this is the way.